And I wanted to invite Desiree Dickerson to the stage from THNDR Games as our next speaker. Give a warm welcome, please.
Okay, awesome. Oh yeah, and I have slides. Okay, well, hello everyone, and thank you for having me. My name is Desiree Dickerson, and I am CEO and co-founder of THNDR Games. And we are a mobile gaming platform for competitive connected play powered by frictionless rewards. And so today we're going to talk about how real-world micro rewards or micro incentives can actually influence user behavior and really enhance some of the social layer of gaming. And we're actually going to talk about this as it specifically relates to Bitcoin. Awesome. So value transfer is inherently social, and it is definitely weaved into the fabric of society. And because gaming is social, it's actually only natural for value transfer to be woven into the games that we play to some degree. So I'm not going to get into the entire history of value transfer in games, and I'm sure a lot of folks here are very up to speed. But if we go back into the dawn of humankind, you're seeing value transfer, you're seeing barter, you're seeing transfer or value transfer for goods, but also at the same time, you're seeing the rise of gaming and competitive play, just the idea of just play very early in prehistoric times. Then in medieval Renaissance, you're seeing games and sporting events where participants are competing for honors or recognition, but on top of that, actually starting to win monetary prizes as well. The 18th and 19th century with the rise of board games, card games, and those really becoming popular, gambling, wagering, betting kind of starts reigning supreme. Then we can kind of rush forward through the 60s with arcades and kind of that real idea of like pay to play. And then the 90s, we're going more virtual, and we're seeing payments in games kind of really start to evolve with Double Dragon, Ultima Online obviously becoming one of the first MMO games to incorporate real money economies, allowing players to buy and sell in-game items with a real-world currency. And then, EverQuest in the 90s really popularizing the subscription model. 2010s, MMOs really continued to dominate, and we're really seeing the push of virtual currencies in-game purchases becoming more popular. And then the 2010s and really kind of the burgeoning of the mobile gaming frontier and the rise of freemium models and in-app purchases really becoming like a mainstay in the gaming industry. So that's actually just continuing to evolve. Payments are kind of really, really trying to find their way in, and we're seeing this with the emergence of Web3, blockchain, and NFTs as the next evolution of value transfer in games. So there's obviously been a lot of issues, and we've had more advancements with value transfer in games, real-world value transfer in games, and then some steps backwards. And there's a ton of challenges and limitations. There's lots of barriers and reasons why this hasn't happened earlier. And one of the most glaring, it's last on here, but I'm gonna cover it first, is really around player dissatisfaction. And if we see in the 2010s how value transfer and economies are introduced into games, they're really around, the intentionality behind them is revenue generation for a company, a developer, rather than being pushed by the user base. So we're seeing in the 2010s people very dissatisfied with these payment systems, these in-game economies. Two examples that are very notorious is Battlefronts, loot boxes, where you could purchase randomized items with real money. Players really felt that was kind of, they felt exploited, and it was creating unfair advantages for those individuals who were willing to or even just able to kind of spend money in game. And obviously most notorious really the Diablo auction house. And players were very, very vocal about this, kind of stating that this was a distraction for the sense of immersion and fairness, and eventually this was removed. But there are a few other issues. I won't dwell on them. Some of the technical issues around security and privacy. You add real-world value to a game, and the first thing that's going to happen is people are going to find ways to cheat and to be total frauds. So, even at Thunder, adding super, super small rewards to our games, we've had to really work on developing sophisticated anti-cheat and anti-fraud tools. Also, privacy is a big issue around user data protection, especially involving transaction data. Regulation, this becomes incredibly tricky, especially in the traditional fiat rails. Gaming is global. I can play games with anywhere in the world, really with the rise of connected play. And when you add in real-world value to a game, you can technically send value anywhere in the world. And that gets into kind of the realm of cross-border payments, which is really plagued with regulatory compliance, legal issues. And it's a huge, huge challenge. And we'll get into kind of how Bitcoin fixes that a little bit, but this hasn't really been all that possible just due to kind of the resource and financial constraints that are necessary to actually put payments in games. Then obviously walled gardens, I won't get into this much. You have Apple and Google who are never going to be happy about this. We are always fighting to stay in the App Store and Google Play, but it's really kind of sad because we talk about payments in games, or even if you buy something in the App Store, there's very much a threshold for the lowest denomination, and we have a lot of users in emerging countries who can't afford 99 cents. They can, but that makes up a lot of their monthly income, so they're not really able to participate in games to the fullest degree because of some of the limitations of the traditional fiat rails. So these are some problems, and I'm offering Bitcoin as a solution. It doesn't solve everything, but there are some really unique properties about Bitcoin as a virtual currency that not only kind of address these problems, but also open up new opportunities and new aspects that developers can harness to really improve some of the gameplay and some of the social aspects. So I'm just going to go over a few of them here that are relevant to this discussion, but there's many more. One being around microtransactions. Bitcoin is highly divisible. You can divide it into infinitesimally small units. I'm not sure what Bitcoin price is at today. Funny enough, it's between 26 and 30,000 per Bitcoin. But we actually don't really transact at that level. We're not sending $30,000 in a game. So there is a denomination called a Satoshi, and one Satoshi equals 1/100 millionth of a Bitcoin. So in our games, we reward users with one Satoshi, which is actually 2/10,000ths of a cent. So this is insanely small. We don't have currencies or in fiat currency, we don't have these very small denominations, and we're able to really incentivize our users to do things in games with these very small rewards that don't really impact our bottom line. And I'll get into that more in a bit. Then there's nearly zero fees. This is a new technology, and so these fees are incredibly, almost unfairly cheap. So we're talking 1/100,000th of a penny, and that doesn't necessarily scale with the transaction size. So I can send $100 and the transaction fee might be 1/10,000th of a cent. So it's insanely, insanely cheap. So very much undercuts the traditional fiat rails. Then we have the high frequency. These are instantaneous settlements. Really, it's just me sending money to my users. If you win, you get it instantaneously. There's no intermediaries, there's no payment processors. These happen incredibly quickly, and so you can really kind of take advantage of that positive feedback loop. Cross-border, again, removing intermediaries and allowing for the ability for frictionless direct payments. A lot of like traditional fintech companies are starting to adopt Bitcoin and other currencies, but most notably probably Cash App, folks are familiar with. They're only available in the US, but they they've devoted a lot of resource to Bitcoin so they can become really the first global fintech app and fintech wallet in the world. We'll get over into some social stuff in a second, but these are just some of the properties that solve some of that issues. But really, what's interesting is kind of the new opportunities that Bitcoin opens up for game developers. So by adding these micro-incentive rewards via Bitcoin, we can drive retention, engagement, and habituation. So when we talk about engagement, these rewards, we can send tiny, tiny rewards for anything a player does in the game, and that really kind of drives this sense of achievement and this a sense of progression throughout the game. And we can also influence what they do in the game. Like, hey, we launched a new feature. Check it out, and you'll receive 1 Satoshi. And this is a real-world reward. Then kind of the one that I'm always the most excited about is actually retention. These are small, but yet they're very, very meaningful rewards, and they happen very frequently. I love Bitcoin, but I'm not about to add it to the game just because I think it's cool. I run a venture-backed startup, and I have to have a bottom line. So, we really believe in Bitcoin because it can increase your LTV, and ultimately, bigger LTV means greater monetization, better games, better company. And we've actually A/B tested this. Adding Bitcoin to the games actually increases long-term retention over 516%. And that number just continues to grow. All of our games are in the top 10% retention rates in their categories. And then around habituation, I don't know if most folks are probably familiar with the habit loop. The more recent construct of that was with the book Atomic Habits, but there's this idea of like this 4 stages of developing a habit, and that's cue, craving, response, and reward. And that's how we develop all of our habits day in and day out. And if we're able to add more weight to one of those stages, we can drive these habits even further. So we're adding more weight to the reward stage of the habit loop, and by doing that, when there is a cue, the craving is greater and the response is greater, and you can influence that response more heavily. And so by weighting that, you really create a flywheel effect with your users and keeping them engaged more and for longer. Again, and also this just reinforces their connection with the game and their commitment to the community. And one thing I don't have up here that we're really experimenting with is when you actually give your users their first money to spend in the game, real world money, they're actually more likely to spend their own money in the game later on. And so really that idea of giving the first funds primes the user to continue spending external funds in the game for longer periods of time. And that's something that we're continuing to experiment with. Then moving on to another area that's super interesting, and this kind of brings us full circle. So the social fabric layer that lays on top of play can be incredibly enriched by adding this, additional dimensionality via value transfer. And this becomes increasingly important as gaming becomes even more social. Gaming is very quickly becoming the next social network, especially for younger generations. So if we do this right, value transfer can actually amplify social interaction, and really we think about it in 3 different areas. Ownership, loyalty, opportunity, and community. When we think about ownership, if we're giving our users the power to transact, to send, to buy, to take money out of the game, to put money out into the game, we're allowing our users to generate their own in-game economies. Obviously, there is some bumpers we have to have, and we can guide its growth. But when users feel ownership in the economy and feel ownership in the game, they have skin in the game, and they're going to be more invested and more involved. This construct is way more social than a in-game economy being driven by a developer, and something that's more social is going to grow a lot faster, and it's going to have a lot more staying power. So the idea of ownership really is like developing games according to collective desires. So again, we talked about ownership. If people have ownership, they have skin in the game. What does that lead to? That leads to greater loyalty. So another really great aspect of these micro incentives is that you can kind of give them out all the time for anything. And in the games, we see that. We see loyalty to the games because people are coming, they're playing, they're winning, they're earning instantly, and they can cash out. The rewards are theirs. There's no cash out thresholds. If you want to cash out to 10,000th of a cent, that is yours, and you can do that. But receiving that creates a lot of loyalty, so they know when they're coming back and earning more, they're going to actually receive that prize. But even just within the community, we're able to drive loyalty with these rewards. There are Discord tip bots where you can tip with Bitcoin, and we're able to kind of grow our loyal community through this. We have users who help out, when there's a problem, they debug, they're creating memes and tournaments in our Discord, and we're able to reward those users with tiny, tiny payments, 10 Satoshis here, a few cents here and there. Rather than just like kudos or an emoji, this is much more meaningful because there is real world value related to this, and these rewards accumulate over time. So again, that socially strengthens the positive feedback loop of people engaging and actively being a part of a gaming community. Then thinking through opportunity, and this is really around monetization. Everyone's talking about user-generated content. We have so many people in our community who are creating skins and soundtracks and memes and just random videos, and we use these. They literally create value for our company. We have a great Twitter following. We have like an awesome TikTok channel, and all of the content is coming from our users. And I find it unethical to be using that and generate value for myself and for my investors without giving them something in return. And it's not a lot, but it's a lot more than a thumbs up or a smile emoji. And it's something that they can retain and start to accumulate a good amount of Bitcoin, and we're actually seeing this. I pay people for like our soundtracks. A lot of them are user created, and I've paid them for it, so it's kind of neat. Then the fourth one is really just around community interaction, and we're running out of time, so I won't get into too much. But we have games that really only target specific user personas. We have like a match 3 bubble shooter that's super relaxing and fun, but we don't really see like our competitive players engaging in that. But with these rewards, even outside of the game, we're able to create new aspects of competitive play for these more casual games. So we do tournaments where they're really kind of enhances the social aspect, the rivalry. There's leaderboards. There's just tons of like different gameplay that you can layer onto your just like base level gameplay by harnessing this like idea of micro incentive rewards. Also with cooperative play, we do like quests or team challenges and put a prize at the end. And it's really unique because we think of esports and prizes and just any type of competition has a very large reward. But with these small amounts, we're able to host daily, hourly tournaments, and people are super engaged and are playing and are winning. And we're only able to do that because it's like, oh, hey, the prize pool's $10. That doesn't really make sense to split up across 10 different winners. In a normal situation, you can't even send a payment, via Apple or any type of payment processor for less than $1. Most of the time, you can't even do that. So using Bitcoin, it is not only possible, but it is actually feasible kind of in a business sense. No, I'm wrapping up. So that is just a little bit about what we're doing at Thunder. We have 6 games right now in the App Store and Google Play, all built on our platform. Obviously, check out the games because I think they're awesome, and people are very addicted to them. So warning. But I really ask you to check them out just to see kind of what is possible when you start harnessing the idea of micro incentive, real world rewards. So check it out, and my DMs are open on Twitter. But I would love to chat more.
I wasn't actually trying to rush you. It's
No.
because they told me the clicker wasn't working, so I had to say the clicker
Well, it was
didn't work.
perfect. It was perfect timing.
I know we're a bit out of time, but if anyone has a question, we can stretch a little bit if you want to ask something.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Hey, I saw your metrics there. Do you have A/B testing on giving people sats versus in-game rewards, currency, or no rewards at all?
Not no rewards, but we
Okay.
do in-game currency. So the 516% is
Over
just,
in-game currency.
Yeah, just like a soft currency. Yeah.
Okay, so you tried the soft currency, and giving people sats is a much higher.
Yes, and what's really interesting is we played around with giving higher prizes. So like now you win like 5 sats, 100 sats. We experimented. Don't tell our users this, but we experimented with giving much higher rewards, and that actually didn't increase engagement at all.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yep, it's just that small dopamine hit.